order our African American Equity Restoration Task Force meeting for October 21st. And we will start with our rules of decorum.
Those who wish to speak during the public forum should sign up by completing the public comment form listed on the task force website ahead of time. All speakers will be given 3 minutes. Please do not use profanity or numbers, and remember to stay on topic. Those who fail to adhere to these rules may be ruled out of order and asked to step away from the podium. For those who are listening, please note that you may not disrupt a public meeting from the audience. Those who do so may be asked to leave. We appreciate everyone's respect for these rules.
Thank you. And so hopefully everyone's had the opportunity to review the minutes. We'll come back to that for any questions, comments, or corrections. But we'll move now to our staff report. Stacey.
Yeah, so last meeting, you all asked us to make a sponsorship for the statue at the St. Strickland Park. And so that sponsorship and the $9,500 was sent and approved, so that's been taken care of. And then as I've been passing out the swag items for the task force members has been ordered. We also ordered swag items for the actual community engagement tables. So when we post booths for tables at events, we'll have something on the tables. So we're slowly getting that stuff in there, but it consists of pins and hand sanitizer, lip balm, just little grab and go items. So once we have everything, we'll let you know.
We appreciate that. We'll step into committee reports, and we'll start with community engagement. So the Community Engagement Committee spent some time reviewing subcommittee creation documents and putting their committee, during their committee meeting. And so if there are any updates or information that you would like to provide to the task force regarding your thoughts and next steps for creation of our subcommittees.
Absolutely. The Community Engagement Committee, we had a chance to meet, and we also had a chance to look at some thought leaders around the community that will be good partners, as well as people that are leading within their various professional fields. So we came up with a robust list, and we look forward to contacting these individuals to see if they can serve on the corresponding subcommittees going forward.
Perfect. So if I could ask then, and this can probably be distributed through email, just a list of the subcommittees we decided on, and if there's suggested membership, do we have to vote on that?
I don't think that you do need to vote on that particularly. I think that that's more or less a question of who those individuals are, the communication that goes out to them, and then from who. So like I would envision that there's some type of formal letter that's sent out to these entities, maybe coming from you on behalf of the task force that we could send out for you, just so you can understand what to expect, but then also that it's from representation from them and not us. So I think that's something that maybe the committee could talk about during the community meetings about what is that content look like in that letter. But I don't think we need to vote on who it is.
So if for your next committee meeting, for the subcommittees, if you could just think about what should be included in a letter, and then if there are expectations, so frequency of the meetings, their contributions, and kind of how that works and how that filters through the task force, so that everybody's clear on their role in supporting our goals. I would also like to send them the document that was created that has the umbrellas and the rings and the buckets that kind of shows our priorities and how they support the overall vision of restoring equity. And then if we have a report from the investment committee.
Yeah, I can do it. So I sat with the investment committee. We took some time to look at, kind of debrief on the grant program that we offered during the spring. And so the investment committee members felt like they wanted to make sure that the questions on the application were reflected on the rubric, just so that it's easier to rate each of the entities. And so we walked through that process, made some revisions where needed. Ultimately, I think that the rubric was in good standing. we just kind of shortened it a little bit. It was like 10 questions. It was a lot to get through. Considering we received 40 applications last year, it was a lot of work. So again, we just kind of synthesized that and made it a little clearer and just easier to record. So that's what we spent time doing. On Monday, we'll look at the revised version of that rubric and then we'll share it with you guys just to have it.
Alright, so that's via email, that's not.
Yeah, so we'll do the investment committee meeting next Monday, and then by the next task force meeting, you guys should have it.
And is there any conversation about, or did we firm up the next grant window?
Yeah, it should be opening this fall. So the plan is November.
November, okay. Alright, and then my last question were, I think there was some type of summary or response expected from those who submitted grants. Did we decide on that, or they did send us something as far as use of
Oh, yes,
funds?
like they're reporting. Yeah, they're reporting, yes. It's due December 31st.
All right, thank you. So end of year for the recipients reporting. And then the grant window for this next cycle should open in November. Alright, so we're in the portion now of our meeting for our guests. And we have some team members from the city's Housing and Neighborhood Development Department. And they're here with us to kind of discuss the 5-year consolidated plan to assess needs and set priorities for our future funding in support of housing and community development in Knoxville. So if you would mind, introduce yourselves and your position with the city.
Good evening. Thank you so much for having us join you tonight. We really appreciate this opportunity. My name is Linda Russ, and I'm the Community Development Administrator for the City of Knoxville Housing and Neighborhood Development Department. And with me, I have Kevin DuBose, Director of Community Development, Housing and Neighborhood Development for the city, and Bailey Walker. And we are going to lead you through an exercise. We're going to kind of ask you all to really give us some feedback. We're going to ask you some specific questions, and then if you're comfortable with turning your chairs, I know you don't have a lot of space, but I can also move that if it makes more sense.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, so we'll move that down, but we want to record some of your answers and to some of our questions. But let me tell you first a little bit about our consolidated plan. So the consolidated plan is, we do this every 5 years, and we kicked it off this year with our fair housing equity planning process. And some of you, I think, were with us at that meeting in, let's see, in March 12th. We met with you, and actually it was the engineering and public works complex, but we met with you and talked with you, and got your feedback so that we could include that in our fair housing equity plan. And so there was a reason why we wanted to do the equity plan first before we started our consolidated planning process. And that was because we really wanted to approach our consolidated plan process, with really that equity lens. And so we started that process first, and we were able to finish that at the end of August, I believe. And then we kicked off our consolidated plan process in August as well. And we learned a lot from you at that meeting. I won't go into a lot of detail other than you can find the final, actually we have the draft. I'm still working on getting the final plan done. We're going to turn that in with our consolidated plan to HUD. But if you want to see the final draft of the equity plan, it's on our webpage. If you go to www.knoxvilletn.gov and then / fair housing, right? Fair housing, all one word. And that will take you to the page that has that draft on there. We accepted public comments, I believe, through the end of August. So we do have a final plan. I'm just in the process of assembling that and having that on our page. But I hope that you'll find that interesting, and we really appreciate the feedback that you gave us along the way to help us get there. So our consolidated plan is a 5-year plan that governs our HUD dollars on 3 main pots: community development block grants, CDBG. We get about 1.6 million of that for this year. We've had a pretty steady decrease of about 2% a year in those funds, but we're getting 1.6 million this year. And those funds really can be used, they're the most flexible funds we have. They can be used for affordable housing, they can be used for economic development, they can be used for community development activities, public infrastructure, public facilities, public services, a small amount of public services. The second pot of funds are our home investment partnerships grant. And we call it HOME for short, but those are funds that have specifically to do with affordable housing. And we took a big hit this year with a 21% decrease in our funds. So we're now, for the first time in many years, we have about $934,000. So that was something that we hadn't really anticipated, but we're dealing with it. And certainly the city's funds that we put towards our affordable rental development fund have really augmented that a lot. So even though that funding has decreased, the city funds continue to increase. So that helps a lot with our plans for developing affordable housing. And then the third and final funds are the Emergency Solutions Grant, or ESG, and those are funds that are specifically for homeless services. And those had a 2% decrease the last couple of years as well. So we are now at less than 147,000 for homeless services for this year. Again, if we didn't have the city helping to augment those funds with general funds that we use as match, but we actually get more in general funds, almost twice as much in general funds. I think that's not too far off, about twice as much in general funds from the city that help to also support homeless services. So without the City Council and our City Administration supporting those two programs, if we were only relying on HUD, we would be hurting in two areas that are very relevant, very important in our community. So the consolidated plan is a 5-year plan. It doesn't have any funding attached to it. Congress doesn't tell us what we have 5 years in advance. They tell us annually. So each year we do an update to this 5-year plan. And they will know what amount of funding we're getting. We hold competitive applications for our CDBG and our ESG dollars. And we also fund some programs internally, owner-occupied housing, rehab, and that sort of thing. The consolidated plan is, because it's only once every 5 years, we do a pretty robust community engagement process. We've already had a couple of public meetings. We've done a number of focus groups. We have a survey. And if you look in front of you, if you look in front of you, I hope at your place you'll have a survey in English on one side and in Spanish on the other side. You can just point your phone right at this QR code, and it'll take you 5 to 7 minutes to complete that survey. But we would really, really appreciate it if you would not only take the survey yourselves, but if you would also share this with your family, with your friends, with your church congregations, with community groups and other people that you know. We specifically are encouraged to do outreach to populations and people in the community who could most benefit from these funds that we talked about, these HUD funds. So we reach out to people who are low to moderate income. We reach out to people who have a disability, to veterans. Help me here, Bailey. Who else we reach out to? Sorry, youth who are experiencing homelessness, but also people who live in, for those of you who are involved in our equity plan, the word was a recap. It's racially and ethnically concentrated areas of poverty. So we really want to hear from people in those areas, who live in those areas, who may be low to moderate income, to really tell us what they believe the needs are in our community, so that we can use that to help prioritize what we're going to fund. So we do a combination, we decided to not do a PowerPoint because I was going to hopefully not take as much time, so Bailey's looking at me like, let's speed it up. But we have several different ways in which we reach out to the community for input on our 5-year plan and then the strategies that will come from that. So certainly citizen and public participation that we're doing in public meetings, that we're doing in the survey, that we also do in polling meetings. And then consultation, so we meet with the Coalition for the Homeless, we meet with affordable housing providers and housing service providers, housing developers.
Youth Action Board.
Youth Action Board, CAC.
We're going to meet with Knox Pride as
Knox
well.
Pride we meet with. So we do consultation with specific groups to try to understand, what the needs are of that particular community. And that's what we're here tonight for, to do a focus group with you, to really hear. And this is not quite the same thing as the survey. So we still want you to take the survey, we want to get the plug in for that. But we really want to hear specifically to restoring equity in the African American community. We really want to hear from that perspective. So we appreciate you giving us the time tonight to talk about it. We're going to get to that in just a minute, but we also look at data and other information that help to explain some of the really relevant and timely issues right now. Affordable housing being one, the lack of affordable rental housing, lack of down payment assistance, those kinds of things. We want to reach out and hear or read, actually research. So any community group that you may be involved with, your strategic plan.
Yeah, I think that too. I know that you guys also, one of your actions was to conduct a review of the state of Black Knoxville. Has that been completed or is that in the process?
It's in the process.
It's in the process. Yeah. I think the timeline lines of it, it'd be great to be able to incorporate some of those findings.
Yeah, so that way we have information from other sources in the community to help back up, what opinions are about what we need. But we also have HUD program regulations, and there's specific things that we can spend funding on, there's other things we can't spend funding on, there's certain programs have caps, and I won't go into all of that detail, but you can read more about that actually on we have a webpage, it's www.knoxvilletn.gov, and then that / and consolidated plan, all one word, consolidated plan. And we have some of the program regulations and all that that'll explain how those funds can be used. But if you're okay with it, we're going to switch now into listening to you all instead of me doing the talking. And I'm going to move that forward, and I'm going to write down your answers to some questions.
While you're taking care of that, can you tell me what the deadline is for the survey if we're sharing it in?
October 31st. It's been open since August 1st. But
October 31st.
But after that, and talk about it, there will be other opportunities for student input as well. We'll have public hearings, we'll get a comment period, and we'll keep our website up to date the way.
How can I position this so everybody can see it?
Exactly. Is it too far?
Right here, that's fine.
But that's good. All right, thank you. Thanks, Charlie.
I feel like this is a changing situation.
And Bailey is going to facilitate the questions, and I'm going to write down some of your answers.
Yeah, okay. So we're going to work through 3 different questions. We'll start by talking about what's working well in the community as it relates to those community development needs, and then we'll talk about what the unmet needs or gaps are, and then we'll ask what solutions you all would like to see implemented to those. And when we get to the solutions part of it, what will be really important there, and we're going to ask you all afterwards with some little sticker dots that help us prioritize those, kind of indicate which ones you think should be the highest priority, and this will help inform our plan what's prioritized for funding when people apply for funding each year. But to start, what is working well in our community?
Oh, this is really the housing the career.
It can be housing, economic development, workforce development, community services, social services.
Food services also.
Social services, but yeah, food sometimes, yeah.
Did you say that social services were working well? Or you were just asking for, like, what's working? Yeah. We can get back to that. easier to talk about what's not working well. We can go there, and then that might remind you of things that are working well.
Well, no, I do have something.
Okay.
I do believe that there are some effective collaborations among people or groups in the community. We struggle for a bit in duplication of services and working in silos. So I believe, and although it's still some ways to go, there are some efforts that are working well as far as being more collaborative and joining together people who are approaching similar causes or have similar goals, at least touching base.
See better collaboration. Are there any certain like coalitions or work groups that you're thinking of specifically that work working really well?
I think those that are tackling the food desert, child care services, but we need to tackle auxiliary education resources and supports.
Can you explain to me what you mean by auxiliary education?
So outside of the school, opportunities for families and students to get tutoring or educational enhancements outside of the classroom. That's not working well, I'm sorry. That's something we need to do.
Oh, that's not working out?
No, that's something we need to
Okay. I'll make a note of that so we can make sure to come back to
do.
it.
Sorry.
I think I can add one on what is working here.
Yeah.
So, oh, no, on this one,
No.
what is working?
Working
I'm
with-
just gonna get down, but I want to capture
Oh.
what you said. Real quick, because we don't lose it. So that was,
Auxiliary, education courses at the school.
So that'd be after-school programs and career readiness, or what else?
So I'm mainly thinking about the proficiencies in reading and math and twofold supporting parents to help them or educate them how to best support their students, what rights they have in the schools, what they can ask for. But some years ago, and I haven't seen it recently, not that it's not there, but there was like a publication of your child should know this in kindergarten, your child should know this in first grade, because the standards have changed, and then there's been a lot of emphasis on rigor, but I'm not sure our families know what that means and what the new expectations are going into kindergarten, and reading, writing, counting, knowing your colors, numbers. That's a little different than just even a decade ago. So I think it would be helpful if we had some supports in that way and outside of the school.
thank you.
I think for me, I'll talk from the university side. There's a huge effort for community, they're calling it community engagement and outreach. There's a lot of conversation from that side on what do people need to do to engage with the community. So I
You said
think,
the UT, University of Tennessee?
yeah. So there's a lot of conversation on that side of how people need to engage with the local community and outreach and community engaged research. So I think that is one thing, whether it was there a few years ago, but now there's a huge push for that.
Well, I think
it can go both ways.
I agree.
Yeah.
I was just a part of the community engagement series, so with our post-secondary partners, I'm seeing more intention about partnerships in the community and supporting post-secondary pathways, workforce development. I think, again, that's one that we can still beef up a little bit, but
They still can identify things.
yeah.
Those are working well.
Did I hear you say that workforce development is not working well currently?
I think that efforts toward workforce development from our post-secondary partners is working well.
Okay, all right. I can.
So this is working well? I can bring it back.
So we want,
And task force helped me because, I'm going through a narrow view of those experiences that I have and people that I talk to in the community and work with. I do work with the post-secondary partners. I think about Connect Ministries. So when you talk about collaborative, we have Connect Ministries with, what's home, what's it? New Direction. So you have like 3 or 4, and Vivian's is Hope for the Homeless, something like that. But they all work together. Voice of the Voice, that's it.
You mentioned Connect, and then you mentioned a couple more.
New Directions. New Directions. And Voice for the Voices.
Yeah, voice for the voices.
Vivian Shakespeare.
Voice for voices. They were saying how that's part of that collaboration is working well.
You know, what I want to say on even the things that are working well, they still need more support and resources. So I don't want us to look at, I don't want you guys to look at, oh, this worked well, and think that others know room for improvement, because these organizations need more support and resources.
Gwen, I think you're right, because one of the things that we have failed to do is sustain the programs that are working well and sustain the efforts that are working well, because we leave them alone thinking they're okay. So I totally agree that just because they're working well, we don't want to ignore them. We want to make sure we sustain those things that are producing and giving us some desirable, some outcomes in the community.
What kind of support is, I mean, are they more like financial, or is it more?
They need financial resources, I know. I know firsthand that all three organizations that we named, the directors of, executive directors of those organizations come out of their pockets. Even though they do get small, small end grants, they have to come out of their pockets to be able to sustain the work that they're doing, to rely on community organizations and different resources. So they have, I think that's the only reason why they've been able to stay in existence for so long, is because they do have community support. They are making a difference, but they often find themselves getting the lower grants and having to really fight for what they get.
Also, it would be helpful if there were transparency in policies or procedures connected to the organization. So if, we'll take Vivian, if she is supporting homelessness, then when there are policies, procedures, grants, investments, that should be made available and accessible to her without always having to hunt it down. So when we think of New Direction, same thing. When we think of health equity and health advocacy, instead of them having to hunt the information, having some transparency about what's out there for them, even if it's just information.
Yeah. That was more like that, is that more on like pulling people into conversation in general, making sure people can access this information.
I think both, because people doing the work definitely need to be sitting at the tables where these collaborations and decisions are happening. But at the least, the information should be shared and transparent for people.
Another group, I don't know if they're all in the school system or not. Clarence Sparrington has a group called Real Talk that he works with about 400 or 500 inner city youth. And I think they need to be on the rails.
Working well.
Working well.
Real talk.
Working well.
Oh, yeah.
Real talk.
Yeah, Real Talk.
And also when we talk about collaborations and working well, and I do think from a teaching standpoint, project excellence is making a huge impact as it relates to
Yeah.
continuity.
And as evident, as we talked about that project excellence and the post-secondary partnership, because Austin East had a historic number of students accepted this year to the University of Tennessee. And the UT Success Academy, I think, is working well because it's making sure that once those students get there, they have supports to stay matriculated through graduation. So that's what's in there.
So we have to do something at the university that they typically bring us access to.
Do we want to transition that to comparison solutions? I don't want to talk about needs. Needs, okay, yeah. Let's focus, I guess, a little bit more on some of those unmet needs before we go on to the solutions. What are some other unmet needs or gaps, or maybe some emerging needs?
Definitely from a affordable housing standpoint, just a lack of funding overall. Look at on the developer side, there's a lack of funding across the board, just with the increase of construction costs, the supply chain issues post-COVID, and inflation has really put a strain. And when you talk about equity, it's oftentimes those that are located on the margins of society that are impacted the most. So that I would also echo NIMBYism, not in my backyard. I think we have done an outstanding job articulating the issue in terms of the increase in population within Knox County, but in terms of people advocating for affordable housing, it has to be somewhere. So a lot of people want affordable housing, but I think sometimes it can carry a negative connotation, and we end up in a position to where you want to put it.
Yeah, I think in previous meetings we talked about like marketing behind why it's important to have a combat that, give people resources on how to combat it, or talking about that.
And also to add to that, Reverend Jones is there. What I'm seeing is.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna give her.
So I wanted to add on to that is that what I'm now starting to see is a concentration in East Knoxville. There have been some occasions where there have been proposals for affordable housing developments in other parts of the city that have been met with protests, that for various reasons, but I think that we know that the NIMBYism is primary for a lot of them. And I think there is a mindset for some people that all of the affordable housing, or poor people, if you will, should be in East Knoxville. And that is absolutely incorrect. I know a lot of people who have been born and raised in East Knoxville, lived in East Knoxville all their lives, primarily these are younger people who want to live outside of East Knoxville because they've always lived in East Knoxville. And they want to live west, north, south, but it is very limited, to a certain degree as to the affordable housing options there.
I just want to jump in here. I'm not supposed to influence this conversation, but I want to put in a plug for our equity plan. Our equity plan, the consultants concluded the same thing, that we have to build affordable housing all over the city and not just in the areas where we concentrate. Yeah. So, sorry, I'll go back to my facilitator role, not answer the conversation. Take it back on.
And I'm not sure, you all have to help me with this because it just seems like it to me, if it's accurate, but we need to put concrete in the goalpost. I feel like we come up with these plans and programs and then the goalpost moves. Home Source of East Tennessee and Urban League, who have supported people or attempted to with affordable housing. And then you go through the process, the application, and all the requirements, and by the time you get that done, you don't qualify anymore. Is that right? Okay.
So there's a lot of red tape, the process is confusing.
I don't even know that it's red tape, it's just that once you qualify, you should qualify. The goalpost should move after you've gone through the process.
What else is not working well, or not meant to be? We need time for people to move on to kind of these solutions.
I'm going to say there's a need for more commercial development, such as grocery stores. And I do feel like at some point, juncture, there will be spark of redevelopment through Magnolia with the stadium funding, but even without the stadium, I mean, whatever else we can do to help influence, especially as it relates to grocery stores. That I actually heard a rumor, I don't know if it's true, but there's a possibility that Save a Lot may not be getting for the long haul. It's already for sale, okay. I never looked, I forget to look up when it's out there, so, well, I think that's been it's a fact then. So the only grocery store that we have, is not currently is Kroger, which you have the ability to go up National Highway.
Save a lot of Kroger.
You Save a Lot for sale.
Oh. Okay,
I never look up there, because I don't know.
so we just have Kroger.
And there's no risk of program leaving at one point or what?
To my knowledge.
But I will say, back to Kroger. Well, let me start with this. So when we think about the food desert right here, and if we go left a little bit, Kroger's is still not as accessible for a family who has children riding the bus, relying on public transportation. It's really right outside of what qualifies us as a food desert. Now, if you go closer to that area, then that one store keeps them from being a food desert. But we know, because I've been, that all Krogers aren't comparable to each other.
Correct. True step.
Let's move on to refocusing on solutions. Now we're going to shift gears. We're going to talk more about solutions. So I was thinking about here things that you like to fund the strategic plan. So this isn't laying out this is what's going to be funded, but these are the priorities for funding. So we'll talk about solutions and the opportunity to kind of vote on them. So if you want to vote on it, just make sure we get it written down. And we can even pull things from what's working well. But what solutions you could, these problems you'd like to see prioritized?
I think for me, transportation is a big one because whether people are using bus transportation or whatever, do we have enough places where these buses go? Mm-hmm. And because if you have to take a bus and then it take you 2 hours to go to the grocery store, do we have enough stops in these low-income communities? Mm-hmm. And do they land on some specific days? Do they stop at specific times? So.
Yeah, it's going to be part of the program as well.
Transportation actually is going to get more complicated the first of the year because bus passes and things of this sort will be gone. And they will do everything digitally. Which is going to, in essence, do apps, and it will be digital. Therefore, those that don't have that technology, got to figure it out.
So what is the solution?
Not to do that. Our elderly, those who are in the digital divide without access to technology is just another barrier.
Yes.
We're creating another barrier.
Well, it's just like, at one point, I think I'm on this total credit card, but I think they backed off of that. Yes.
Going cashless,
Right.
that discounts people
Who will come back.
who don't have access to cards.
Right.
Or have a card and there's no funds in it, but maybe I have a few dollars that, that I can pay to get something. When you say cashless, how does that affect children? Teenagers, kids, they're trying to go somewhere. So.
What are those solutions?
I don't know what it looks like, but until we get a way to incentivize businesses to come to some of these deserts, I don't think they're going to come. And so you got to incentivize them to come, and then you got to figure a way to make it worth their while to stay. And we've not done that very well.
Are you speaking about what we talked about before with all commercial development, or did I hear you say food deserts?
It could be anything from food to entertainment. I mean, at this point, is just getting businesses. If we could spend as much time in East Knoxville, for example, as we are doing downtown, use that as an example, from a business standpoint, and making it safe to where people want to come and things of this sort, that would be a solution.
Looking at, looking at the small business development, entrepreneurship, y'all's plan, would you be interested in adding something, for example, like resources, education for, Black entrepreneurs and business owners? That's something you want to add?
And the incentive for that as well as affordable housing. Because what I try to share with some of my neighbors, because we're all kind of disturbed about the lack of affordable housing. But if you have a house, people have to understand that you don't go into the business of property ownership to be a charity. And so people who are in it for the business and can rent their homes at market rate, what's the incentive for them not to? You know,
So that, did I hear you saying that you would like to see a solution as incentives to
provide
affordable housing? Okay.
Other things too. You also mentioned in the plan, which feels like to be in line with that, just increasing the number of mortgage-ready aspiring Black homeowners, so that you mentioned specifically like financial education, housing counseling, and homeownership preparation. So sort of like homeowner readiness for programs, that'd be another solution.
But I think there are already some efforts an early element program.
I don't think there's a lack
you
of
talked about.
educational resources
The
that's
state
available.
plan.
It's a lack of funding.
Okay, so it's going to require more funding though, perhaps?
Well, even, you know, for people not having
I think we need that.
the funds to be able to qualify for a home,
Sorry,
to qualify to purchase a home. You
Okay,
can be educated if you can't purchase a home, you're still stuck.
okay, yeah. Additional financial resources specifically for,
Like that, anything like that.
The down payment, closing costs.
okay.
Is that what you were saying as well?
I think those are available as well. Just with going back to the workforce development, just making sure that we have equitable access to high-paying jobs so that folks can purchase a home.
Can we put that in? Oh, go ahead.
I think they changed it, so at one point, I guess a year ago, or maybe 18 months ago, you had to have for many applications 3 times, approved 3 times, the amount of the rent and salary.
So you see for rentals and stuff.
Okay. So if our average rent is $1,800 to $2,000, okay?
Something like that.
And so you need to show that you're making $4,500 to $6,000 a month for affordable housing. Like it's almost an oxymoron, like it contradicts each other. Because you wouldn't qualify for affordable housing if you're making $72,000 a year. But you need to make $72,000 a year to qualify for affordable housing.
Would like that rental assistance then be, especially for those kind of people who kind of are in that gap? So say if you need affordable housing, but also can't afford like a market rate.
And I don't want to stay on the stocks, but I will say, I don't want people to have the impression that people want to be stuck in that place. So when we get back to good jobs, economic development, ways that people can earn livable wages based on what cost of living is, that's what people want.
We have
And then the example that Tanisha is giving is not for a person who qualifies for a voucher because they're working and they're making a certain amount of money, but they're not making that type of money. Right. So if you buy a voucher, then that's a totally different story. But there are so many people, so many private landlords now who are not accepting vouchers because they know that we're in housing crisis and they can get market rate and above, and people will pay. So we have to understand this. That's something the gap for people people who are at a higher income, if you will, because those are the houses. Anything that's not accepting voucher is absolutely going to say three times.
on the expensive
I'm making these policies, a lot of people who are academically working, trying to figure out and have a better, lifestyle, way of life. And sometimes that is, even written in these houses don't do the same thing.
And I think it changed, right, by law to 2 times?
I don't know if there is
There's
any.
no restriction on
So they can still do it 3 times?
Yeah.
If you're a private landlord, you're
Yeah.
Yeah, there's not a lot of things that my only list is for 3 times rent, and also one references for my jobs to call, they call Linda to ask, so there's more and more things, more restrictions on what they can do.
And it's certainly not to disparage rental assistance programs. I think we're all grateful for them, but it's not transformative.
Sure, it's more permanent.
Like giving individuals a fish versus teaching them how to fish, or even teaching them how to get their own lake so that they won't be dependent moving forward. And I think it's one of the goals from the task force.
So is that, I'm not sure, Catherine, I know we talked, we have equitable access to jobs, and also include economic development for good paying jobs, that kind of captures what I would like.
And then also, since you talked about a double-edged sword, so if I do have a voucher and I start making X amount of money that really is not enough to get me outside of the affordable housing that I'm in, to live in a house or in it, then I have to pay so much more money. And it's kind of like, I'm trying to better myself, but now I'm going to have to pay much more money.
We need
to
transition
stay.
time, that's the solution.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that helps.
Say what that is?
Transition time. So as it stands, if you, and I had a friend in this situation, so she was receiving rental assistance while she was going to school. She graduates and gets a job, and immediately her rent almost tripled, not quite, by the next month. So she had no time to save or just get used to the new salary. I mean, it was, I don't even know if she received her first check. And so there needs to be a transition time for people who have put in the effort to better themselves and get some of these better paying jobs. But it doesn't happen overnight.
And I've heard somebody who said they worked at McDonald's, but because they worked so many hours, their rent shot up, and I can't even afford the childcare now, even with a little assistance. And so you get people doing it as, if I do better if I don't, well, I guess maybe I'm going to come out better if I don't. But that's really not their desire, but they can't afford tomorrow, in a sense.
Tiffany, I don't know the research, but perhaps the city has it. At one point, I'd like to know, in order for a single mother of 2 kids to live off of assistance, she would need to make at least $60,000 a year. So if on assistance, you are able to live like you make $60,000 a year, but you don't have access to a job making $60,000 a year, what's the incentive or motivation for you to come off of that assistance? But I don't know what the numbers are. Yeah.
Okay. We are probably 5 minutes over our time, so is there any
Okay.
other last minutes which is going to add and ask y'all to help prioritize, like we're going to give these little thoughts to vote?
Yeah.
No time? Okay. Or would you have time for this? Okay, all right, never mind, okay. Think we're going to do more solutions?
Solutions are over here.
Yeah, kind of take.
Yeah, we want to look at some of the not working well and the needs and turn those into solutions. We could maybe narrow it down to 2 boards or 2 sheets to prioritize. I tried to capture some of it, but is there anything we have need for more education outside of school, so that just tutoring, proficiency, did that relate to partners, or no, that was below that? Do I need to have a solution here? And what is that solution?
So we could think about sort of an education co-op, but what I do think is that with our post-secondary partners, next step is almost letting staff be on loan. So if you could loan, if we're in need of an algebra teacher at Austin East, and I'll use them for example because that has happened multiple times over the past few years, to help our students be college ready or trade ready or career ready, if we could borrow some staff from our post-secondary partners to support an extended curriculum. Like, I don't think it's fair, in my opinion, again, at Austin East, if you can only take Spanish, but you can go to another school and take Spanish, German, or French. And some of that is due to staffing limitations.
So is that something different then for the need for more education outside of schools? Is that different? Because you're talking, it sounds like that's maybe in school.
Yeah, that's probably in school.
Okay, so do I need to add that one? Do you have a solution? Or would the co-op be something similar?
I'll give you an example and then you all can help me articulate what the solution is. When I was teaching, I had several students who had families that were able to send them to Huntington or Sylvan Learning Centers. So those were kind of external learning opportunities. So I started one in East Knoxville for 10 years. And I don't know of a center that has been developed since that time. You all help me if there has been. Okay. And so we know that we have our child care providers who are doing some educational homework help and tutoring. But I'm talking about supplemental education, not just helping with homework and solving a problem or two. We're talking true teaching.
So would that would be outside of the schools?
That's outside of the school.
Okay, so it could include tutoring, but do you want that separate than what you're saying?
It could be inclusive of tutoring.
Okay.
Just while Linda's writing, we know the low-income number by household for housing vouchers and things like that. So for a single person, 51,000 is low income. Okay, one adult, one child is 58,250. As you mentioned, parent, 2 kids would be 65. 5 would be considered low income, and family of 4 is 72,800.
So it's like the math at math. You know what I mean? Like it just doesn't correlate to what they have as accessible.
I think my question here is, those figures, they make practically in real sense. Do we have families in low-income families making 70,000 per year? What's on the ground? What's happening? Because it's easy to say, yeah, you make 2,000, like, I know, but unless you are working 2 or 3 jobs for you to make that, is that even realistic?
And we have some different segments of that you gave the 80% numbers. We have 0 to 30% of area median income, which is considered extremely low income. Then like 31 to 50% is very low income, and then that 51% to 80%, which is that low to moderate income. So some of the programs that we fund concentrate on the households that are within those lower income levels. And this all has to do with not just how much money you make, but how many people are in your household.
So do you have kind of a heat map of that? I think we would reference concentrated challenges and but I'm just curious if that 0 to 30, if they're concentrated in one area, and how, as you go up the chain, it gets dispersed throughout the city.
Yeah. These traditional places for low-income housing. We also know that there's 20,000 people who are rent earning in Knoxville that's paying more than 30% of their income for rent. That's the size of Illinois City. And we know that there's about 10,000 members that are extremely rent burdened, which is 50% of their income going toward
So Kevin, you see what I'm saying? If you need 300% of your income
That's just definitely a
to
challenge.
qualify, okay.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I captured what you were saying. I said tutoring and then more than tutoring, but I know there was more to it. I'm getting older and my brain didn't retain that.
Sure, so there are teaching strategies and ways to support content knowledge and content development outside of the standard curriculum, which that's a whole different ball of wax that we can't control.
Thank you.
But yeah.
If we can, if no one else has anything at the moment, can we revisit the not working well and the needs and see what else I might be missing? I think I got the first one, need for education outside schools, and then we added inside schools. Lack of transition time, I have that here. Workforce development partners need more support. I have it over here. Lack of money for affordable housing to keep up with rising development costs. Did I get that? Here I have provide incentives to landlords, developers for affordable housing. Account for people without access to technology. Do I have that somewhere?
I think we just have transportation, but we don't have that.
I don't have tech. I thought I wrote it twice. I guess I didn't.
Yeah, I guess the solution is just making sure that we don't let the digital divide or access to technology be a barrier of access to basic needs.
Was that specifically about transportation or other things as well?
Other things, because if it starts with transportation, it will slowly filter in other, a lot of things now require a QR code or some type of digital access. I think it's horrible for it to be tied to transportation, but I can see that being just the beginning for other things, like making an appointment at the doctor.
Sure.
And you have to do that through some type of digital access.
Okay, then going on to the needs, we have need more information, need more transparency in information of resources. I don't think I have it on this. Can we put that in a solution? I don't know who it was who had that idea.
I did, but does anybody else have anything? I do have a solution for it. Alright. So, for example, New Directions, they are providing healthcare services. You have committees or boards that discuss and determine healthcare policy or at least information as far as where we are within it. I think a report should just be provided to them. They should get a quarterly or biannual update of the state of healthcare. The same way with education, affordable housing. Whatever you're dealing with, you should get some type of at least semi or biannual reporting of the state of it, because you might be tackling an issue that is already in the solution stages. You just didn't know. Or you might be tackling an issue ahead of time that we could help, so it could be a two-way street where you're on the ground and you're seeing this trend going towards a problem that the city isn't tackling yet.
Thank you. Let's see, we have lack of funding for affordable housing. I think we've got that over here. Inflation, construction costs. So we said provide incentives to landlords, developers. Is that close enough? Strategies to deal with NIMBY. I think we have NIMBY. Do we have NIMBY on the solutions?
I think it's
It says a problem, we don't have a solution.
What would be a solution for NIMBY?
Definitely a strategic education plan for just not those in East Knoxville, but perhaps across the entire community to deconstruct the negative connotations associated with affordable housing.
I can't capture everything he said so beautifully, but can I say strategic plan for managing NIMBYism?
And I think you mentioned also education, because we tend to educate those in the midst of whatever that situation is, but some of our education needs to be citywide, just like with the task force. Citywide, they didn't understand the need for it or what we were tackling, so we had to do some marketing and have conversations citywide so they understand the necessity for it. Citywide.
So there's specific education.
Right.
Education for affordable housing or education?
It's related to the Indian.
Sure.
Like,
Okay, oh, it is,
Like,
okay.
education is kind of a part of that strategic plan comment.
Thank you. All right, then we have, let's see, I call it areas of opportunity. That's what HUD calls it, areas of opportunity, those areas where people have choice about where they can live. Do we want to have that in our solutions to further develop, further understand the areas of opportunity?
That's what Gwen was
Yeah.
referencing, that, you know, the affordable housing is concentrated currently, so the solution would be there, obviously.
Okay, so we want to,
Disperse.
how would we say that? Can you put that in?
Is that what
Say
that
it
means, to
pretty.
disperse it? If we concentrate, would the opposite be?
I think, or to call it a affordable housing location strategic plan. So that looks across the entire city and sees where's their land opportunity. And then when we have developers who are interested in KCDC, then they can go to that plan and say, okay, so what sites, what areas are kind of earmarked that would be good locations to put away. And whether or not the community's trying to find it.
Whatever happened to the mixed rooftop area? The mixed roof, like they're doing with, what's that, our Aaertf and homes at Austin Homes.
Mixed income.
Right. So is that the only location where they are trying that? Did you know?
I think it's a strategy of KCDC's overall, but that's probably
The best example right
best
now?
example, yeah.
But that's also what Western High is becoming, correct?
Yeah, that's what you're asking.
It would be even a bigger footprint
Okay.
when it's all said and done, because it's a much bigger.
Right.
So did I hear having more mixed income?
No, I don't know. Well, I guess what I was wondering is, since we have these pilot programs, so to speak, just to see how that works. Because when we had another almost focused conversation, because we don't want to disrupt community ties. We don't want to push people out so much that we kind of dismantle the sense of community and safety and trust that's already existed. So I was just something to watch and see.
I really would love to hear your feedback on our equity plan.
I would agree with that, but I would challenge us as well. Mixed income can bring better business than low income.
I mean, that's what it's supposed to, right?
Well, but
Okay.
we're already, I think that we're going to see that as a result of gentrification that we've seen. It's coming into, it's not the community, but this is the place where everyone wants to live now. Because it's a town, it's a stadium. But when I think about the mixed income, I do think it's a good concept for a pilot, but there's a piece of my mind that says, we have affordable housing, apartments, townhouses, condos, everywhere, where you really need the affordable housing, but yet we're taking away potential units that can go to people that we need, because there's such a waiting list on KCDC for people factors. So that's kind of my but this is a good conversation. It's a good thought-provoking
Because
conversation.
these rooftops are grocery stores.
Correct.
So the last thing is talking about,
Gentrification is a beast I don't know, nobody has an answer to. That's part of capitalism. Whether we like it or not, that's just a part of it.
so the last thing we have is commercial development, grocery stores, et cetera, food deserts, and I think I do have that. Do I have that over there? Incentivize commercial development businesses,
Yes.
food, entertainment. So is there anything, and there's been a few quieter
Yeah, I was gonna say,
members.
Anderson, I know is not quiet. And I don't know, you person I don't know.
My name is Stella Bridgman.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Dean.
It's real correct.
We over here weakening.
Say, I don't know, you can introduce yourself. But I am curious to know, if there was anything that you wanted to add, you want to do along.
But I'm thinking, obviously, I'm going to be thinking a lot about the education piece of all of this. And in my head, I'm just thinking about ways in which, Pellissippi State in particular can help to address, some of these issues where we haven't necessarily put a footprint where we probably need to, given that we're in the heart of this community. So I have some things written down. George, you and I will probably have to have some more conversations about about how we can make it work. But I think you're right in your perspective about the supplemental support that we can provide, in particular to Awesome students. And there's some programs that are coming up, but I don't think that the programs are wide enough. They're reaching, particular populations of students or within what's now academies of students. And so I think we need a wider breadth, but that's going to take, again, some support for us to make this a little bit healthier.
All right, so I'm kind of grouping education over there. So we have 3 now. Anything else that I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but.
I already did.
Okay. All right, then you go ahead. I'll put him on the spot.
Here we go.
Process. One thing I will add is I know we kind of talk about like the commercial side, especially think about getting grocery stores and stuff. So I think some of that comes with tax incentives. But of course, it have to be strategic in regards of making sure that those incentives are known to the bigger companies, and not just the bigger companies, as in, I'm not looking for more minority-owned companies to step in some of these spaces. Because I haven't read it, but there's rumors that Food City has a certain equation. Whole Foods, they have an equation they look at from zip codes to everything has to total out from the number side of things. So there's policy bureaucracy and things of that nature. But I think if there are some minority businesses in the region or some that are in the country, a lot of relocation has been happening from a corporate standpoint. I know some of that has been tax incentivized. So I don't know how tax incentives can work. I don't think they can be for say only for minority-owned businesses. I don't know. But if there are opportunities to try and, I guess, to have niche tax incentives, that could be help. We're trying to gain more give more of a corporate presence from the minority-owned business side of things. So.
Anything else you want to add?
So we have 3 pages of solutions. And we're going to hand out some sticky dots. They're different colors, but they don't have different weights. And we're not going to limit you. Some places I've gone to these where they say, you only put 1 on. So you want to put all 3 on one thing, you can. If you want to dole them out, you can. And each color has the same weight.
And they're putting it on this side.
Yeah, can we get it all on one thing though?
I needed y'all to take the dots.
I guess I should ask, is there anything that we left off? I mean, looking at these, is there, and if you look back at what's working well, what's not working well, is there something that needs, is there something that kind of stands out to you now, or do you have a new idea?
We could go on and on.
Yeah.
Probably just, I mean, another day, but health equity and health advocacy and education is a big issue. And we talked about even drug education, but I sent an email today just trying to figure out which schools in Region 5 have access to the drug education programs.
Is there anything else? All right, well, you've got your stickies. Your sticky dots. You have a question?
Can you say what we, can you explain again?
So you're going to prioritize among solutions. That's what we're trying to kind of condense it. We're going to prioritize among those solutions. Now, it doesn't mean if a solution doesn't get prioritized in this meeting that it's dead. It doesn't mean that, because we've done a lot of other focus groups. So this same or similar topic may have been a priority for a different group. But we want to know what your opinions are. So you're going to place your sticky dots on those. They're kind of grouped. So we got transportation. We've got that commercial development, incentivizing commercial development of businesses. We've got affordable housing, access to jobs, economic development, strategic plan for managing NIMBYism and education, strategic plan for dispersing affordable housing. That could go under that affordable housing part. That transition time, we don't really have a solution for that, but I didn't want to lose what we were saying. And then the education co-op, education support. So we got education kind of all.
Yeah,
that heat map, I don't know. I just didn't want to lose what that was saying. I don't know if that's a solution, but that's something that we could certainly work on providing. Alternatives to technology, and then that report of the state of healthcare, state of education, state of affordable housing. Those don't have to all be the same thing. Health equity and education. So that's kind of how I grouped what you have. If it makes sense to do it a different way, I'm open to stating it differently. So you're going to place your sticky dots on the three, or if one of them is really critical to you, you can put all three on one. We're not limiting you. And they all have the same weight. Red is the same as green.
Have all the sticky.
Yeah, this is what that meant. So I tell her.
Oh, no,
I have a question. So, some of the things y'all brought up, I put a dot on the reports, like you say, y'all have those things. I mean,
Kevin was just telling me about
like it just needs. Okay.
In my next report, I'll try to take that.
You know, we could have. You know that account has approved that. All right. I got a new problem.
That's right.
No, it's not. But I have one for sure. Oh, well, the fact that it is, fear factor, so things that and then we're talking each week, I think, breast cancer and domestic violence.
Yes.
So just in adding up the dots, it looks like affordable housing had the most number of votes.
And I'm
7.
sorry, we have a couple of people that need to slip out for another appointment.
Yes.
Mr. Underwood. I want to be opted. Thank you.
Thank you.
So
So the top vote getter, it looks like was affordable housing, followed by, incentivizing commercial development, and then that was a 5, and then 4 is that accessible job opportunities, economic development, good paying jobs. We've got a few that had 2s and 1s, and we had the education. I think we had 1 for each inside, post-secondary, and education outside the school, so 3 for education. But again, none of these are going to be lost. All of this input that you provided is going to be included in our consolidated plan. And what's interesting to us as we go through all the different focus groups is seeing all the ways in which these things match up. And we find, like when we analyze our results of our surveys, that there's so many people who will say this is a particular issue, and it kind of cuts across, demographics, and all that. But it doesn't mean that anything's going to be lost. So we just really want to tell you how much we appreciate your support. I think this was a really good conversation. And you are more than welcome to follow up if you would like to put any of this in writing. Not everybody's always comfortable speaking in a group, so if there's something that you would like to share or something that you think about afterwards, we'd love to hear it. So I can give you my email address or Bailey's email address.
Any orders on the flyers?
It's on the flyer. So please feel free to reach out. So let me give you an idea then, just real quickly, of what our timeline is. So we are ending our community engagement process at the end of October. So that's when we're going to stop the surveys and the focus groups and that sort of thing. We need some time to kind of compile all of this information that you've shared with us. And then we're going to come back to you on January 28th. Let me make sure that Let me make sure I'm telling you right. So on January 28th, and it used to seem like a really long way away, but now it seems like it's coming closer and closer. From 6 to 8 p.m., we're going to have a public hearing where we're going to share all of the information that we gathered. And so we'll be able to tell you, so how did the things that you said were priorities, how did that match up with other focus groups, the survey results, all of those sorts of things. And that is going to, all of this information is going to lead us to come up with a draft list of priorities that we're going to get your feedback on at that meeting. So we'll ask it similar way that we did tonight. Considering everything that we've learned, everything that we're sharing with you, did we miss something critical? Sometimes that can happen. You don't see the forest through the trees. So we'll get your feedback on that, and then after that night, that's our list of priorities. And that is going to be our high and low priorities for funding for the next 5 years. Now, things can happen in 5 years. Our last 5-year plan, we completed our community engagement process at the end of 2019. Well, we know what happened in 2020. We had the pandemic. So that's the purpose of that annual action plan, is to update it. If there's anything that's changed in the community, if there's some different resources, different challenges that have come in, different opportunities that we want to take advantage of, we have the opportunity to update it. But our overarching priorities for the 5 years will be those things that come out of that, the end of that meeting. And then we're going to get to work on drafting the plan, and we will have a funding process for that first year, year 1 of that 5-year plan that will start July 1 of 2025. We'll take applications competitively for CDBG and ESG funds, and then we'll draft a plan. We don't say what agencies we're going to fund, but we say the activities and programs that we want to fund, and that will match up with what those priorities are, hopefully, if we have agencies that apply for it. So we could have something that's a priority in the community that no agency, nobody steps forward to do. That is a possibility. But for agencies and for community members who come to this meeting and hear that these are priorities, that tends to kind of plant a seed, and they will do that. And then we'll present that draft plan to you on April 22nd. And all of this timeline is on that page that was the consolidated plan page. So April 22nd, same place, same time, 6 to 8 p.m., Engineering Public Works. We'll have a public hearing and get your feedback on that draft plan. And then we turn it all in, we make revisions as needed, and we turn it all in to HUD on May 15th. So it's a pretty tight timeline, but we really do appreciate you letting us be here tonight and hear some of your thoughts and ideas, and appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to fast forward and just ask if there are any announcements. And I do see a note about the Tennessee Black Legislators Retreat.
Yes. This is an event that came across our radar that we wanted to share with the task force, and hear your thoughts on. November 21st through the 23rd at Montgomery-Bell Park Resort, the Tennessee Black Legislative Retreat for 2024 will be held. It will be an opportunity for folks to gather from across the state. They'll have some breakout sessions, some networking opportunities, etc. And this year, they typically have sessions planned over the 2 days on the areas of gun violence, education, healthcare, and economic development. The registration is currently open. I'm not sure when the registration closes. It looks like it's $250 per person to attend. That does include lodging and meals. It does. Yes. And the lodging is there at the state park, so they have kind of a hotel style. It won't be like in the cabin at the state park. It'll be kind of like in the park hotel. But it also includes meals for the 2 days, any networking events, and then the sessions. So wanted to put that on folks' radar, open up for discussion, so whether or not folks in the task force would, if it was something that you all thought that you would want to have representation at, or if you would just prefer to know individuals or in your personal work capacity, if it's something that your job is you to, but wanted to bring it to you all's attention for discussion about whether or not you think it's something that would be worthwhile for the task force to be represented in, or for you all to just say that individuals or not.
Okay, so do we have time for us to explore a little bit more and look at the information, or do we need to?
I will double check to see, because I don't see on here specifically a registration deadline. Did you know this registration deadline? And we'll share out the link so if folks want to look at it. There's not a whole lot of details, it's kind of typically laid out if you wanted to kind of look at it, or there's also a place, I think, where you can enter your contact information and get more info from the organizers if you guys want to look at it. And we'll try to see what the actual registration deadline is and see if it's something you would have time to discuss at the next meeting and then register, or how we need to handle that. But we can send out that information.
I'm interested, I just need to look at calendar, so that's why I didn't remind me.
We'll send you the link, and then, we have a community meetings next week, so if you guys have time to look at it, we can be in and just kind of, I think that,
And where is it again?
It's Montgomery-Bell State Park, which is in Burns, Tennessee. It's near Nashville.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Middle Tennessee.
Okay.
Dixon County, maybe.
And Looking around the room, it doesn't look like we have anyone signed up for public forum. Are there any other announcements? Are there any tasks lingering that need to be assigned to committees before next week, before your meeting? You guys think I'm pretty good with everything? Okay. All right, so.
I'm sorry. I think that we are tentatively scheduled to be here next Monday. I'll send that confirmation. Oh, see what happens. So committee meetings will be here next Monday. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, and then our next meeting, official meeting, will be Monday, November 11th, here at 5:30. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So be.
Wait a minute.